It all starts when he arrives at his new magic school, Kimberly, with other freshmen, and while they are all introduced in this anime, they see a strange girl dressed like samurai walking ahead of them, which surprises them. Meanwhile, Oliver wonders who she is as he feels a strange connection with her, which he calls fate. Later, during the Magical Animals Parade, a brunette gets angry that a troll is being mistreated, but a dude defends that it ought to be, since trolls are known to be unfriendly toward humans. Their argument almost escalates into a verbal fight, but Oliver intervenes and says they should get to know each other first. As the brunette attempts to introduce herself, an unknown magician in the crowd suddenly casts magic on her, putting her legs on autopilot, and she begins to run toward the troll against her will. Oliver and the others wonder what is happening and quickly chase after her to rescue her before she runs to her doom. The magic suddenly wears off and she falls before the troll. However, before the ugly green monster can destroy her, the samurai enters the scene and stops him, bringing out her sword and facing the troll, making the others wonder if she has a death wish or is simply stupid. They immediately team up and unleash a wind spell while Oliver casts flute magic, summoning a dragon voice and thus scaring the troll. This provides the samurai with an opening, and she instantly launches at the troll, during which her hair suddenly turns white, shocking Oliver, who immediately recognizes it as an innocent color. The strange girl defeats the troll in one hit and thanks the others for assisting her. Later, in the school hall, Oliver asks her what she was planning to do, and she replies that she didn't actually have a plan, surprising him, but he remains amused about the magic spell she used earlier and reasons that she must have great potential as a mage. The headmistress, Esmeralda, soon appears to speak about what being in Kimberly Magic Academy entails and says many were admitted but few will graduate. After her endless talking, she transports the students to a dining hall where Oliver and the others gather to introduce themselves. The yellow-haired is Michaela from the Mirroring family. The brunette who almost got smashed is Katie, who loves animals and identifies with them. And this guy is called Guy from a family of magical farmers. The nerd is named Pete, and he is just a normal dude born to nameless parents with no magical history. Oliver then introduces himself and tells them his cousins are senior students in the school. Just then, Michaela reveals how surprised she was when he used the dragon voice, and he tells her that he is good at customizing spells and coming up with new ways to use them. Afterward, the samurai introduces herself as Nanao and reveals that she got there based on a special recommendation by a mage who turns out to be Michaela's dad. He had saved her when she was about to be sent to the Shadow Realm during a war. The next morning, Oliver wakes up early and decides to walk around his new school. He suddenly hears a voice from hiding, and she introduces herself as a covert operative named Teresa, sent by his brother, Gwen, to keep watch over him. She tells him to call her anytime he needs her and leaves. Then Oliver continues wandering around and suddenly finds Nanao bathing outside, so he immediately casts a magic spell to cover them to prevent others from seeing her. He asks her if she has no shame, and she replies that she is helping men regain their masculinity. He then asks her about the scars on her body, to which she says they are from the war she fought. He turns around and looks at her but instantly sees the image of an unknown girl in the middle of a river. He soon offers her his jacket to cover herself and wonders who she really is because he can smell a faint scent of blood from her, which no amount of bathing can wipe away. Later that day, in the sword arts class, the teacher, Master Garland, asks someone to define terms, and Pete, the nerd in the class, excitedly raises his hand. After speaking for some minutes about what he was even asked, the teacher comments on this and then tells the students they will kickstart the class by having two people who already know how to fight entertain the class in a duel. Nanao immediately volunteers to fight, and seeing this, a guy named Richard steps forward to declare his interest so he can use the opportunity to show off that he is stronger than the girl who claimed to have defeated a troll. Seeing that he wants to take advantage of Nanao's lack of sword arts experience, Oliver quickly tells the teacher to let him fight with Nanao instead, and while Richard tries to object since he volunteered first, Michaela challenges him to a duel, which allows the fight between Nanao and Oliver. As Oliver and Nanao prepare to fight, Master Garland casts an anti-lethality spell on their swords to prevent them from hurting each other. As the fight begins, Oliver reasons that he will go soft on her, but when he sees her hair suddenly changing to white, he realizes he must either go hard or get defeated. The fight quickly gets intense as they skillfully clash their swords against each other, and as the fight continues, Oliver realizes that Nanao must have sent many to their end, judging by her aura. A few exchanges after, Nanao begins to cry because he is soft, shocking Oliver, so he decides to get as hard as he can so she can reach the climax she desires. They immediately go into a fatal mode with high killing intent, but the teacher quickly stops them before they get him in trouble since they have already broken the spell he cast earlier. Oliver is shocked and wonders what he was thinking. Meanwhile, Michaela asks Richard if he could have withstood Nanao like Oliver did, making him speechless. and then she opts out of the fight. As the students return to their classes, Nanao chases after Oliver excitedly to tell him that was the most fulfilling fight she's ever had. However, she isn't fully satisfied and asks that they have a rematch, but this time with real swords. Oliver tells her no, saying he doesn't want to kill her, neither does he want to die prematurely. Then he walks away, leaving Nanao sad that he has refused to defeat her. Later that afternoon, in the magical biology class, the creepy teacher with saw-like teeth gave the whole class a task to make cocoons around silkworms but warned them to be careful, as they could fill them with too much magic and turn the silkworms into monster insects. As the task begins, Michaela and Oliver quickly finish theirs while Guy struggles with his. Meanwhile, Katie is extra careful with hers since she loves animals and doesn't want them to be destroyed. However, in the final one, she gets distracted and mistakenly fills the worm with too much mana, turning it black. She becomes scared, and her colleagues immediately tell her to destroy it before it turns into a monster, but she is reluctant. The monster insect suddenly attacks her, but Michaela and Oliver immediately dismember the insect, causing the teacher to subtract their points for helping Katie. Afterward, in the infirmary, Katie thanks Oliver for staying with her and explains her deep love for living creatures. Oliver assures her that he and the others will stay with her no matter who she chooses to be like, despite the evil in this world. Later that afternoon, he meets Teresa, who tells him not to be friends with the weakling since it is unlikely she will survive, but he tells her that's his business. She then informs him she will be away for some time. Following this, while they all eat in the dining hall, Pete suddenly remembers he left his book in the speleology class, and as he plans to go get it, Oliver and Michaela offer to go with him because of the rumor of the mysterious things that happen at night in the school. Pete soon finds his book and claims there's nothing to fear after all. However, as they head back for the exit, they discover it is now a dead end. The whole place suddenly changes, and a senior student named Oilia appears, looking eerie. She releases some evil miasma into the air and tries to convince them to come closer, but Oliver refuses and tells Pete and Michaela that they should leave immediately. However, as they run off, a fifth-year student named Cyrus blocks their path with stacked-up bones, and Oilia approaches them. Cyrus and Oilia, who seem to be arch-enemies, soon get into a verbal exchange that escalates into a battle over who is stronger. Oilia suddenly starts to use dark magic, shocking Oliver and the others. Seeing that the two have chosen to fight each other, Oliver and his friends immediately attempt to escape, but Cyrus tells them no one is left. Just then, Nanao makes a chilling appearance and tells the three to escape while she holds the two overpowered morons fighting. She says that someone who was supposed to die has finally found a place to do so and runs toward the fight. Oliver wonders what she means and immediately follows her. However, before they can do anything, the student body president, Godfrey, suddenly unleashes a flame, stopping the fight. He then tells Oilia and Cyrus to get back to where they came from. Later, upon getting outside, Oliver angrily confronts Nanao about what she was thinking back there, and she soon explains that she has long lost any attachment to life since the terrible war she fought back in her country. She had slain a lot of soldiers that day, and while she approached the enemy's commander, his soldiers surrounded her and would have killed her if not for Michaela's father, who came to her rescue. She then says that since then, life has been meaningless to her, which is why she really wanted her wish to come true during her fight with Oliver. They wonder what the wish is, and she tells them about the phenomenon in her school of fighting called Sherway, which involves fighting and defeating someone you respect and admire. Oliver is surprised to hear this, and Nanao tells him that she felt the Sherway she had been looking for when she fought in the previous day, but is sad that he refused to fight her, which has made her feel useless ever since. Meanwhile, Michaela holds her and calmly tells her it's time to find a new way to live rather than living for the sword. They all assure her they will be her friend, and Oliver tells her to promise never to try to kill herself again, so she stands up and promises them all to lead a new life. The next day, during the sword arts class, Richard, still willing to show off, approaches Oliver and challenges him to a duel. Even though Oliver is not willing to fight him, he agrees with the intention to allow him to win so the idiot will let him rest. However, Nanao notices this and tells him she doesn't want him to lose unless he is truly beaten. She begs him to give it his all if he is going to fight. But Richard feels ridiculed and gets angry that they think he is some useless weakling. Later, Michaela reveals to Oliver that she and Richard grew up together, and he has always wanted to prove himself at any given opportunity. While they talk, Pete suddenly comes to report that Katie has run off to where the capture troll is said to be executed on the execution grounds. Katie blocks the executioner from carrying out the deed, but he electrocutes her with magic. Her friends appear at this moment, and while he tries to attack them too, two guys appear to stop him, saying an order has been released against the troll's execution as more investigation needs to be carried out on it. Afterward, one of the guys introduces himself to Katie as Milligan, a fellow demon lover, and asks her to visit him anytime if she needs anything. Later, while they return to class with Katie feeling very excited, they suddenly receive a letter sent from Richard challenging Nanao and Oliver to a fight the next day. Katie goes to the troll and tries to befriend it. This causes a backlash of mockery from her classmates, which makes Oliver angry, so he calls Guy and Nanao to join him in beating up these idiots. This eventually lands them in the detention room, and while Michaela isn't surprised to see Guy and Nanao involved, she can't believe that a good boy like Oliver is also among the offenders. Katie comes to apologize for not being able to stand up for herself, but Oliver tells her he is at fault for allowing his emotions to get the best of him. Just then, Michaela informs them that they have successfully turned their classmates against them, and Richard will definitely use this to his advantage. She adds that the fight coming up the next day will not be fair, and Oliver stands to his feet as if he is ready for whatever comes. The next day, upon reaching the battle arena, Richard shockingly informs them that there will be a fighting exhibition, leaving them wondering what that means. A few kobold monsters are suddenly released, and Richard slays them. Oliver asks what he thinks he is doing, as he was expecting a duel, but Richard replies that he decided to turn it into a kobold hunting contest between him and two of them, and whoever slays the most kobolds wins. The audience begins to cheer since they are excited to see how this turns out, while Katie becomes concerned for the monsters. Just then, Nanao gets angry and calls them all morons for taking joy in something so silly, but the students tell her to say that to the gods and begin to throw bottles at her. She tells Oliver that they should leave, saying she is not interested in this contest, but she is blocked by Richard's friends. At the same time, as one person goes to release more kobold monsters, he shockingly finds a more dangerous monster, which sends him to the Shadow Realm instantly. The monster steps onto the arena and begins to defeat everyone. Oliver identifies the monster as a Garuda and wonders why it is here, with Richard regretting his life's decisions of orchestrating this in the first place. Seeing how Garuda is serving the students their defeat one by one, he almost loses his nerve and starts to run off, even though Oliver warns him not to. The monster chases after him immediately and would have killed him if not for Nanao, who blocks its attack. She begins to combat the bird monster, surprising Oliver. Seeing this, Guy tells the others they need to assist her, but Michaela tells him to shut up and focus on protecting himself first since his weakness will only hold Nanao back. As Nanao continues to fight Garuda, it suddenly unleashes a terrible attack that would have completely ended her, but Oliver casts a spell just in time, thus saving her. The monster then faces Oliver, and while he barely keeps up with the pace of the fight, Garuda strikes him. It then attempts to defeat him, but Nanao saves him too and continues engaging the monster while Oliver manages to drag himself to safety. He casts healing magic on his wound, but Richard is also there and asks him why they are still fighting, wondering if they are not scared. Oliver reveals that while he is scared, it doesn't seem like Nanao is. He then says she is a warrior and not ordinary like him, so he must help her and teach her how to live like an ordinary person, or else she might die. As he returns to the arena, he tells Richard that Nanao wanted to see how he fought too, shocking him. Oliver immediately heads back into the fight and tells Nanao he will create an opening for her so she can deal the last blow and end this. A few moments later, Oliver sees an opportunity and quickly casts a spell, creating an opening for Nanao. However, as Nanao runs toward Garuda, it quickly recovers from Oliver's spell, shocking him, so he immediately decides to bait himself so she can land an attack. Just then, Richard sends a spell attack, throwing Garuda off and saving Oliver. Nanao then makes the final set of moves and beheads the monster. Oliver and Nanao walk up to Richard to thank him for helping them, and they express how proud of him they are, making him emotional because he has always been called an embarrassment to his clan. The following day, Katie visits the troll again with food, hoping that it will take her food from her this time, and while she thinks it's a negative again since it doesn't respond, it suddenly grabs the food and starts eating, making Katie happy. Meanwhile, Milligan, who is already doubting her success with a troll, is surprised and cheers her on. Following that, while Oliver and his friends eat lunch, he speculates that considering the occurrence from the night before, it must have been a retaliation orchestrated by the demon rights activist due to the event that happened with the troll. He speculates that this is not the end, and Guy mentions that he hopes the teachers find out about this. However, Oliver tells him that the school will not get involved since they deem it just a fight between students that got out of hand. Michaela adds that at Kimberly, what happens to them is nothing special, making Guy realize that entering this academy is the worst decision of his life. Meanwhile, some classmates are praising Nanao for defeating Garuda. Seeing that Oliver is not gaining the same attention, Michaela offers to give him a victory kiss, but he tells her he will pass. Nanao overhears this and comes to give him a kiss while demanding her own, but Oliver's cousin interrupts them. Later, during the alchemy class, the teacher Grenville gives them a task, and as the students carry it out, Oliver offers to assist Pete, but the overconfident fool replies that he does not need his help. However, he soon gets into trouble, but Oliver quickly casts a spell and covers it with his body to prevent it from exploding. The teacher is impressed and asks for his name, commending that he seems to have practiced very well to be capable of that. However, as he walks away, he tells Oliver he will remember his name and face but warns him to watch the kind of friends he keeps. After the class, while Oliver talks with the group, Richard suddenly appears to warn him about Grenville, saying he has a track record of ruining the future careers of every talented student who came under his wing. He tells Oliver that Grenville might soon come after him too, and warns him to be careful. Afterward, he tells Katie that one of his acquaintances wants to speak with her. Upon getting outside, they meet Mackley, who reveals that she was responsible for the occurrence that happened to Katie the previous day and apologizes. Hearing this, Oliver asks her who was working with her, as someone else must have been there to make the troll go crazy, but Mackley replies that she does not know about that, as all she wanted to do was embarrass Katie. On their way back to class, they reason that this is getting complicated already, but then Katie tells them she wants to visit the troll again, and perhaps she might become better friends with it this time. While Katie engages the troll, it suddenly speaks and tells her not to come back here anymore, hinting that Milligan is more dangerous than she appears. Meanwhile, Oliver and Nanao train together, and while they discuss, Oliver suddenly realizes that the troll was trying to escape rather than going out of control as they initially thought. They immediately run to the troll's cage only to discover that Katie is missing. The troll tells them that she has been taken away to the same place he used to be, the Labyrinth. Oliver and Nanao head there immediately as they fully realize that this was the plan of a demi-human rights activist all along who was trying to make demi-humans as intelligent as humans. As they head further into the Labyrinth, they suddenly get sucked into an unknown chamber. As they consider calling the authorities, Milligan appears before them, saying she is not allowing that. She then expresses her disgust about them icing her Garuda, making them realize she was behind the incident. They suddenly see Katie lying on a slab, and Milligan reveals that Katie is the key to the progress of her experiment with demi-humans since she could get the troll to talk compared to herself. Milligan summons some surgical equipment and says she just wants to peek inside Katie's brain to know how she could do that. She then shows them the other demi-humans and cubs she has been working on, making Nanao angry, so she instantly changes her hair color and launches an attack before Oliver can warn her not to. Milligan immediately casts a spell with her enchanted eye, which begins to turn Nanao into a statue, but Oliver quickly counters the spell, saving her. Milligan is impressed and properly reads her bio to them, introducing herself as a fourth-year specialized in demi-human biology. A fight soon breaks out, and after a series of exchanges, Oliver realizes that she is not an easy enemy. Meanwhile, fearless Nanao launches an attack again but falls into a trap Milligan had already placed. Milligan then incinerates the pit, scaring Oliver, but Nanao shockingly appears amidst the flame and attacks Milligan in a flash. Milligan unleashes a wind spell, but Nanao skillfully deflects the magic with her blade, shocking Oliver. He wonders how she did that and doubts she also knows. Milligan decides to get more serious and unleashes a flame spell, but Oliver and Nanao combine their magic to counter it. Oliver and Nanao then devise a plan in which Oliver distracts Milligan, allowing Nanao to sneak up behind her. She then attempts to strike her before she can turn to use her enchanted eye on her, but Milligan shockingly reveals a second enchanted eye in her palm. Oliver instantly fears for Nanao, but she amazingly maneuvers through the lightning speed spell by calculating some physics equations and eventually cuts off Milligan's hand. Milligan collapses immediately, but Oliver is shocked, realizing that this girl just used a spellblade without knowing, and it did not match any of the existing 6 spellblades, which means it is the 7th spellblade no one in the world knows about. Afterward, Godfrey and his assistant arrive, surprised they could beat Milligan without them, but Oliver wonders who informed them anyway. Following this, Katie is taken to the infirmary, where Oliver explains all that happened, but Katie remains in good spirits even after realizing that Milligan used her. This makes Oliver tear up because he also managed to protect her kind side from being corrupted. Later, on their way back to class, Grenville meets them and asks to talk to him separately. Grenville takes him to the Labyrinth, and while they discuss, Oliver accuses Grenville of knowing about what Milligan was doing to the troll. Grenville tries to deny it, but Oliver tells him it was quite obvious from the fact that he was in haste to execute the death judgment on the troll, which means he was trying to get rid of the evidence. Grenville is surprised that he could figure it out, and just when he wonders if this is attributed to some special skills that Oliver has, Oliver suddenly asks him about an event that happened the night 7 years ago. Realizing that Oliver knows quite a lot, Grenville gets cocky about the event, which pisses Oliver off, and a fight immediately begins. As Oliver makes a move to slash Grenville, he instantly analyzes all the future possibilities of the fight and realizes that there is no way he is escaping death if he goes head-on with Grenville. However, he manages to find a timeline that ends in his favor and pursues that path, thus overpowering Grenville. Grenville is shocked that Oliver can use the spellblade that should have died with that victim on that night 7 years ago. He then shockingly realizes that Oliver is that woman's son, and Oliver promises to inflict the same pain Grenville inflicted on his mom that night until he says the right words that would make him stop. Oliver begins to torture his ass until Grenville begs to taste death, and Oliver gladly grants his wish. Just then, his brother, his sister, and Teresa appear, and Oliver realizes that it was Teresa who told Godfrey and his assistant about the fight with Milligan. Following this, Oliver is coronated as the leader of a secret cult, and he vows to wipe out everyone involved in his mother's death, including Esmeralda, Kimberly's headmistress. At that moment, he remembers Nanao's words that there is no joy in a blade wielded for revenge, but only in a blade wielded out of mutual love, and he desires to find out if that is true. For months later, the Evil Council has a meeting about Grenville's sudden disappearance, and they assume that he must be dead. This causes them to wonder who might be responsible, and they even doubt themselves. Michaela's father joins the conversation, and Esmeralda points out that whoever had a hand in Grenville's death has become an enemy. Meanwhile, one of them suggests that it might have been a student, and as Esmeralda says, the student will suffer in despair. The next day, Pete suddenly wakes up from a dream and discovers that his pronouns are now she and her. Oliver wonders what happened and tries to approach him, but Pete acts cranky throughout the day, which makes his friends wonder why he is acting strangely. Katie asks him if Guy tried to use baby oil on him or something, pissing Guy off, and he claims that he is straight as hell. Meanwhile, Pete gets even more pissed, like a girl on her period, and walks away. Just then, an overexcited teacher who calls his name, Dustin, introduces himself as their broomstick instructor. They enter the broom chamber and see a lot of broomsticks flying around, except one called the bucking broomstick, which prefers to be used for sweeping the floor instead. Nanao approaches this broomstick and realizes it is just having one of its mood swing episodes, so she yaps some motivational lingo and gets the broom to obey her, shocking everyone. She flies out on it immediately like a pro witch, leaving everyone drooling like fools. Meanwhile, as Oliver observes her, he reasons that this is the same broomstick that his mother used to ride, and he is surprised that the broom chose Nanao. Following that, Pete continues to act saucy, and in the next class, he also gets attacked during a practical session, but Oliver saves him. Oliver meets him separately and suddenly asks if he has switched sexes. Pete replies yes and shows him his new set of melons, saying he suddenly woke up from a dream and discovered he had developed mammary glands. Oliver breaks it to him that he has got something that makes him a rare species in the world of magic. He is a reversee, one who goes back and forth between two sexes. Oliver then congratulates him for his new gift, but Pete does not understand what he is talking about, so Oliver tells him to try shooting a magic spell. Upon trying this, Pete is shocked that he can now do it unlike before, and he wonders how this is possible. Oliver tells him it is known that each gender comes with its own special ability, and while they discuss further, Carlos suddenly enters. He reveals that he has had an eye on Pete since he noticed something strange about him. Just then, he invites him to a gathering in the Labyrinth happening later at night. As they head to the gathering that night, they meet Godfrey, who safely escorts them to the location, consisting of a gathering for people with gender-based magical traits. As the event begins, Oliver is surprised to see his brother, and then Carlos mounts the stage to sing like a low-budget Beyoncé. Some hours later, they return to their friends, who have been worried about where they were. Meanwhile, one guy spies on them and is pissed to see them together. The next day, while they walk around the school, the dude spying on them from yesterday appears and introduces himself as Rossi, also a first-year student. He messes with them a little and tells Pete their paths will be crossing soon before walking away. Later, in the sword arts class, Rossi and Pete face off in a duel, and as soon as the fight begins, Oliver and Michaela notice that Pete is all tense. Rossi and Pete quickly charge at each other, but only 2 seconds later, Rossi defeats the four-eyed weakling. Rossi then calls him a princess since he is hiding under the protection of his stronger friends. This gets Pete mad, so he meets his friends to help him get stronger, and they agree to train him. The training soon begins with Oliver teaching him how to accurately judge distance. Meanwhile, Rossi eavesdrops from a corner. During lunch that afternoon, Rossi suddenly appears and claims he can train Pete faster than Oliver and Michaela can. When Michaela tells him to shut his mouth, Rossi immediately suggests a challenge to the whole class to determine who the best of the class is. Some students show their interest immediately, even Nanao, which leaves Oliver and Michaela with no choice but to participate. Rossi then explains the game's rules, stating that each time anyone loses, he gives a medal to the victor, and whoever ends up with the most medals wins. An ugly named Odette immediately challenges Nanao, thinking she has the advantage since Nanao is not skilled in using magic. As the fight begins, Odette immediately casts a magic spell while maintaining a distance beyond Nanao's blade range, but little did she know that Nanao learned martial arts from a monk in China. Nanao immediately maneuvers through the spell with her blade and submits her very quickly, shocking her. Later that afternoon, after a training session with Pete, Teresa meets Oliver and tells him that his brother and sister want to meet him. On his way to the location, he meets Oilia, and as he quickly tries to draw his sword, she tells him to chill his balls, saying she only wants to talk. She talks for a moment and advises him not to go on too many adventures but to remain as a proper student for the next few months. Oliver meets his siblings not long after, and Gwen goes straight to the reason for the meeting, asking him if he really saw Nanal use a 7th spellblade. Oliver replies that his instincts tell him yes even though he is unsure. Oliver then says he is somehow glued to her already, and Gwen tells him that she will likely be someone who alters the essence of his identity. He advises Oliver to leave feelings aside and be loyal to her as much as he can. Afterward, as Oliver returns, Rossi crosses him and challenges him to a fight, to which he agrees. The fight heats up very quickly, and Rossi manages to land some brutal hits using some underhanded tricks. Seeing this, Oliver thanks him for making him realize how inexperienced he still is, but he tells Rossi he should get ready to lose in the next 8 moves. Rossi says that is cap, but just 8 moves later, Oliver beats him soundly. He then starts to lecture him that he needs to learn the basic fighting styles, after which Rossi gives up one of his medals. Oliver returns to his room to find Pete shivering on his bed, so he quickly heals him with magic and tells him it is because his body is not yet used to handling magic while in its female form. Oliver then says Pete needs to learn to direct its flow. Afterward, as Oliver returns to his bed, he tells Pete he cannot continue to hide this from others, so the next day, he tells the group that he is a reversee, surprising them, and Michaela immediately offers to teach him how to use his new gift. She informs him that due to his new ability, he has gained a womb, one of the best places to store mana, so that when the rest of his body runs out of mana, the womb opens and supplies him with all the mana he put into it. She opens it for him instantly, making Pete feel a surge of power. She closes it again, and while Katie offers to show Pete the best store for freaky bras, embarrassing him, Rossi appears to tell them he is forfeiting the competition because his weak ass has been on a more losing streak than Detroit Pistons. He then tells Pete he cannot wait to see how strong he has become. Later that afternoon, in the next sword arts class, Pete faces Cornwallis, who has been holding a grudge against him because he is a smarty pants, but Pete soon catches his balance and dodges his strikes while attempting a hit. But the time ends before he can, leaving him sad that his weak ass could not even make a hit. However, his friends encourage him. Just then, Rossi comes to tell him he did better than the last time, and says he might consider Oliver's advice to him after all. Later that afternoon, Katie received a letter from Milligan saying she can now have the workshop she used to own as a form of her apology. However, when her friends hear about this, they consider it risky and try to discourage her, but Katie tells them how brutally the demi-human species are treated. She says she wants to be Gandhi for them and needs the help of her friends to make this possible. Hearing this, Nanao agrees to help her, and the others follow suit. Later that night, they head to the Labyrinth to inspect the workshop, and getting there, they are surprised by how large the place is. The place would become their new base. Afterward, they spent some time eating some barbecue, and in the excitement of the moment, Michaela proposes that they give their group a name so this can become more special. While they think of a befitting name, Nanao suddenly stands up and asks them to draw their swords and form a circle. They then overlap their swords to form a sword rose, a custom common to the trenches Nanao came from. She makes some worthy speech and then calls their name the Sword Roses, which they all agree to, wishing that these memories will last forever. Meanwhile, on the other side of the school, Faye goes to tell Cornwallis that Michaela and her friends are in the Labyrinth, and she sees this as an opportunity to attack her later that night. Katie appears with a troll, shocking everyone, and they wonder how she managed to bring it here. Milligan also appears, saying she is the one who helped bring it, but Oliver remains skeptical about her. Following that, Michaela asks Milligan why she gave Katie the workshop, and she replies that she is only investing in her future potential, hoping to benefit from it too. Katie then introduces the troll to everyone as Marco, and Oliver moves closer to him to welcome him to the group. Afterward, the group heads toward the second layer of the labyrinth, but they suddenly meet Faye and Cornwallis, who challenge Michaela and Nanao to a fight. Just then, a dude named Albright pops out of nowhere, saying he also wants to join. He desires to face off against Nanao and asks that they add Oliver to make it 3 against 3. They all head to the second layer and the fight quickly begins. However, Oliver immediately charges at Albright before he can attack Nanao, while Michaela and Nanao face Cornwallis and Faye. The battle becomes intense as Cornwallis and Michaela skillfully exchange blade attacks, while Nanao and Faye play hide-and-seek like kids. Oliver and Albright's fight gets pretty heated, and Albright won't stop throwing shade at the poor guy because he thinks he is weak, but Oliver tells him to save his spite until he really wins. As the fight progresses, Oliver manages to leave a cut on Albright's cheek and tells him, "Gotcha." Just then, Katie notices something odd about the roof of the second layer and calls the attention of her fellow weaklings to it. After running around for a while, Faye realizes that this fight is tougher than he expected, and at that moment, Cornwallis asks if he will bring her victory at any cost. Faye immediately remembers when she saved him when he was younger, and since then he has vowed to serve her. He tells Cornwallis to make the call, and when she summons a spell, he immediately transforms into a werewolf. The battle becomes more difficult as spells and strikes are useless against the werewolf. Seeing this, Albright tells Oliver he is free to use this as an excuse to run away. But Oliver tells him he is going nowhere because his friends need him. Meanwhile, Michaela tries to convince Cornwallis to transform Faye back, since half-werewolves are known to suffer immense pain whenever they transform. However, Cornwallis tells her to shut her disgusting mouth up, and Nanao also tells Michaela that this fight has gone beyond motivational talks. Since it is obvious that Cornwallis and Faye have accepted the pain that comes with this decision, Michaela apologizes for meddling and immediately prepares to fight at her full capacity. The fight continues, and after a series of exchanges, Michaela unleashes a spell that passes through the werewolf and shocks Cornwallis, throwing her to the ground. Meanwhile, Oliver and Albright are testing their strength and endurance, and they almost turn sword fighting into suplex wrestling. However, Oliver manages to overpower him and wins. Also, at the same time, Cornwallis and Michaela face each other, and Michaela quickly defeats her, making Cornwallis wonder why she never wins. Michaela approaches her and asks her if she had always hated her, and Faye narrates that Cornwallis has always wanted to replace her since she was never recognized by their father. Just then, Nanao grabs Cornwallis's hands and tells her she needs to be herself, and like no one else, or some motivational comment like that, which leaves a smile on her face. Oliver, watching from afar, is having a proud moment. He then tells Albright to fight with Nanao sometime, and he might feel something too, but Albright replies that he also has a story to tell. He starts to narrate how he used to play chess with a girl when he was young. He initially used to beat the girl until she got better and finally won him one day. He was happy for her and told his dad about this, but this only caused torture for him because the Albright family was never supposed to lose. The torture continued for a long time, and this made him learn that he is not allowed to lose, as his defeats and victories belong to his family. Just then, Albright suddenly casts a spell that unleashes monster bees, and he demands that they all surrender so he can wipe their memories of the battle he just lost. But if they resist, they might have to keep remembering it in heaven. The bees begin to attack, and as Oliver, Michaela, and Nanao fight back, Katie calls everyone to enter the nest. She had already anticipated this moment since she noticed the roof might be a bee colony. They all soon gather in the nest, and while this buys them some time, they wonder what to do. Oliver reasons that they might just surrender since he only wants to wipe their memories of his losing, but Nanao refuses, saying she wants Albright to know what it feels like to be defeated. Just then, Michaela decides to reveal a secret she has never told anyone outside her family. She turns into an elf, shocking everyone. As the bees finally break into the barricade, Michaela immediately activates a double spell that slays many monster bees at once. Taking advantage of this, Nanao swiftly slays the other bees and faces Albright, asking him to raise his blade. The two charge at each other head-on, but Nanao defeats him in one move, giving Albright the feeling of an excellent loss which a part of him had always longed for. This event is followed by a bonding moment between the two sisters, and Oliver walks up to Albright in good spirits, telling them to both get stronger so they can have a rematch someday. A few moments later, just when they decide to return to the school, some ugly-looking, creepy monsters suddenly appear. As they try to escape, the monsters capture Albright, Faye, and Pete. Getting back to the school's surface, Oliver quickly reports the incident to Godfrey, and he replies that a similar occurrence has happened in the school. He reveals that Oilia has been consumed by the spell, which instantly reminds Oliver of the warning she gave him the previous day not to go on too many adventures for a while. Following this, the student council body heads to the Labyrinth with a mission to save the students who have been captured. Meanwhile, while the Sword Roses almost get into a heated argument since it's now been days since Pete went missing due to this, Oliver meets his siblings to beg them to help, and they agree, but Gwen tells him they can't afford to mobilize their comrades now. Katie even goes to meet Master Garland, But he tells her that the teachers can't intervene yet until the students are missing for 8 days. He tells her this is a way to train the students to always figure out ways out of their problems. Afterward, Milligan makes an offer to Oliver, Michaela, and Katie to help them in bringing their friend back, even though his chance of survival is barely 20%, on the condition that Katie would partner with her on her research on demi-humans. She also proposes to train them so they can be better prepared to fight Oilia, who is much stronger than they all are. Later that night, Oliver, Michaela, and Nanao set out for the Labyrinth with Milligan, leaving the other 2 weaklings behind. However, while Oliver prepared to leave, Guy gave him a sack of tool plant seeds, which he used for the barricade in their fight against the monster bees. Also, Milligan gives Katie her magical hand, which Nanao cut off the last time, and tells her if she doesn't return, the hand will serve as the key to access her research notes. Meanwhile, in the womb where Oilia's captives are kept, Pete suddenly wakes up unaffected, but she doesn't know. As Milligan and the others embark on this dangerous mission, she tells them what Oilia might be planning, and to achieve this, she captured the underclassmen so she could suck out their vitality. Michaela is surprised to hear this and wonders what she means. It is then Milligan shockingly reveals that Oilia needs male mana only, which she gets from their essence to achieve her plans. This shocks the 3, because this means that Pete is a hindrance to her plan since he is a reversee, and this could make him Oilia's first target if she finds out. On a different side of the labyrinth, the student council meets Walker, and he gives him a map he has been able to draw from scouting the 3rd layer. At the same time, Milligan and her group face the first Kimura, and since it's a monster above the first years, Milligan decides to use this to teach them how to fight it by going after it alone while giving them tips. Now equipped with the proper knowledge, they all head into the 2nd layer. After walking for a while, they decide to take a break before continuing their journey, and during this, Oliver excuses himself to get some water but only does this to secretly meet Teresa. He asks about his siblings, and Teresa replies that they are heading toward the 3rd layer already. She adds that Gwen had told her to ensure she escorts him back when she sees him, but she won't do that since Oliver is now her master since the coronation, and his decisions take priority over other orders given to her. Hearing this, Oliver thanks her and tells her to scout the area and take care of any dangerous monsters on their route, but tells her not to be reckless. As the group continues their journey, Milligan finds it unusual that there are not many magical beasts on their route, not knowing that Teresa has taken care of them. They soon meet a dangerous gorilla which happens to own the territory. Milligan tells them to avoid showing fear and then approaches the beast to have a conversation, but the bro doesn't give a care about what she is saying, so she prepares to attack. However, Nanao stops her and decides to put her motivational skills to use, which calms the monster and frees the way. Milligan is surprised and wonders how she did that, and Nanao tells her that's why she is the greatest. On a different side, Cornwallis is also on a mission to save Faye, and she takes Lynette with her, who is also a 4th year. A few moments later, a monster insect suddenly appears, and the gorilla immediately tries to withstand it, but the insect harvests its big head in a slash, shocking Nanao and the rest. They immediately start to attack it while Milligan watches from afar, hoping to only engage when they need her help. As the battle continues, they find the monster's weak point, or so they think, but Milligan understands that this is the most dangerous part of the fight when fighting a new foe, the moment you first think you know how to beat it. Oliver charges at the beast, aiming for the supposed weak spot, but he is shocked to find that it was a trap, and it is too late as the monster rains attacks on him. Milligan immediately gets into action, hoping that Oliver is not yet dead, but as she draws near, she surprisingly finds out that Oliver outsmarted the monster. He tells her he had anticipated this, and then deals the final blow, defeating the beast. Later that night, while the others sleep, Milligan asks Oliver why they are risking their lives so much because of a friend they just barely met, and he replies that even Pete, from a non-magical background, stood with them to save Katie the first day they met instead of running away, and that made them all happy. So they are willing to stand by him too no matter what happens. Milligan is impressed by their friendship, but then she becomes curious about Oliver since, out of the 3, he ought to be the weakest since he was not born with any talent, as it were. However, he still happens to be equal with them in combat. Milligan speculates that something must have happened in his past that makes up for the gap. She then tells him she is more concerned about him in a different way than she is for Nanao and Michaela. Meanwhile, in Oilia's womb, Rossi regains consciousness and realizes that Pete must be a woman with physical female traits since he was not affected by Oilia's scent, which causes men to become frisky. He tells Pete he has to escape or Oilia will kill him if she finds out. To help him escape, Rossi pierces his body and brings out 3 orbs, the explosive and smoke orbs to help him break out and the distress orb to use to call for help. The next day, as Milligan and the group continue their journey, Oliver starts to feel strange, and he tells Nanao not to move closer to him or she'll have a baby. Nanao wonders what's happening, and Milligan tells her that Ophelia's scent is beginning to affect him, but stupid Nanao remains clueless. They soon get to a river and prepare to hop on a boat, but before that, Milligan tells them she wants to teach them how to walk on water. She shows them while explaining the principle, and Nanao decides to go first, but the idiot sinks immediately. Oliver goes next and gets it immediately. After that, he calls Nanao to join him, then Michaela joins them. Cornwallis and Lynette also arrive at a different side of the river, and they immediately ride their brooms to cross it to the other side. Meanwhile, as Milligan and the group cross the river in a boat, Cyrus suddenly blocks them, scaring them. Milligan tries convincing him to let them go, but he replies that he might as well just use them here since they're going to die in Ophelia's hands anyway. Just then, Michaela tries to do what Nanao does the most: motivational talking. However, Cyrus tells her to cut it, while Milligan uses the opportunity to release some mana, which immediately attracts the aura of Ophelia in the river. It attacks Cyrus instead since he has the strongest mana, giving Milligan and her group the opportunity to escape. While Godfrey and Carlos walk through the second layer, they remember when Ophelia joined Kimberly Academy as a freshman. The first time Godfrey saw her, his dragon suddenly mounted up, but he forcefully tamed it with a spell. He continued to punish his dragon this way whenever he saw her till it learned not to rise again in her presence. And then he offered to be Ophelia's friend. Afterward, he made her join the watch team, but the students hated her because of the special attention Godfrey gave. They accused her of controlling Godfrey with her scent, saying all her weak self knows how to do is to seduce men. This awakened her evil side, and she began to defeat everyone who mocked her. Back to the present, Ophelia decides to kickstart her plan and heads out immediately, allowing Pete to break out. He exits the dungeon and instantly breaks the distress orb, hoping someone will notice. He starts to faint as he longs to see his friend again. A few moments later, Oliver and the group find him, and he breaks out in tears as Oliver embraces him. Just then, Ophelia appears, amused that she caught her prey. Milligan tries to do what Nanao does, asking Ophelia to allow them to go since they are not here to hinder her plan, but Ophelia replies that she is no more human as she has now reached the pinnacle of the Salvador magic. She immediately starts to recite an incantation, and no matter how they try to stop her, they fail until she covers them all in her grand area. Now with no means of escaping except if Ophelia removes the spell or dies, they all prepare to fight her. They start to unleash several attacks at her, but she doesn't budge, so Milligan decides to get under her skin by reminding her of how she couldn't get Godfrey to like her because she was too ugly and was not in his league. Ophelia gets angry and sends massive attacks at her, but Milligan skillfully maneuvers till she gets closer. Ophelia captures her with her chimeras, but Milligan suddenly pulls her trump card by using her enchanted eye on her, which immediately petrifies her. However, Ophelia breaks out of the rock and reveals that she stopped being affected by petrification curses long ago. She starts to torture Milligan, but Milligan is like that stubborn person who wouldn't stop talking no matter how much you bully her. Just then, Michaela and Oliver get into action, creating an opening for Nanao to strike, but as she attempts to end her, she suddenly sees Ophelia crying and she immediately pities her. Ophelia cries even more as she sees the love between the sword roses and wishes she was not alone in this world. Just then, they begin to hear a sonorous voice and Godfrey suddenly breaks in with Carlos, surprising everyone. Carlos assures Ophelia that he is now here and gives her the magic band around his neck as he approaches Ophelia. Oliver tries to interrupt because it is dangerous, but Godfrey stops him. Oliver then asks whose voice is singing, and Godfrey explains that Ophelia and Carlos's family have a pact. He was sent to be with her for a time like this when her spell consumes her. Carlos goes over to embrace Ophelia and apologizes for not making her smile, even though he had promised her he would. They both vanish, and the grand area collapses immediately, leaving a smaller portion behind. Afterward, they all return to the surface, and the whole school gets over the event in a matter of days. However, one certain day, while the Sword Roses walk through the school's passageway, they walk past Kimberly's top-tier teachers, and Oliver becomes more determined to get his revenge.